When the earth is ravaged and animals are dying, a new tribe of people will come onto the earth from many colors, creeds, classes, and who by their action shall make the earth green again.
Then I'll teach people the secret ways, plant saving, how to talk to the trees, how to honor the plants.
Om Hrim Aham Namah Kshim Svaham. Om Aim Klim Sohu Sohu Klim Aim.
G'day groovy gardening galactic guardians of the earth. Today we're talking about chopping and dropping, chop and drop, one of my favorite things to do in the garden. But before we get into that, quick update. If you've been following the original Gardening for the New Earth series, a lot of that was filmed in my own personal garden. Well, that's all over now. I chopped my old garden down and I buried it underneath this one, and I've been growing in here for over the past 6 months. It's been really crazy here in Victoria, Australia, so a lot's changed and I didn't have time to film the change, and it wasn't a pleasant or wanted change at the time, so I just had to make do. But now that I have done, this garden is thriving and the summer plants are big, lush, overgrown, entangled with the dying winter crops. I've had 2 seasons in here now, winter plants, well 3 seasons, winter, spring and summer plants. Some are old and done, some are growing, some are lost in the mix, and this is a self-sustaining ecosystem. It's feeding off the nutrition and water from my old garden, which I've buried underneath. Then I planted these plants. I planted these as seeds, a lot of them. They've grown just with the natural rainfall and the wet, soggy compost of the old garden that's buried underneath them has been keeping them hydrated, acting like a sponge holding water for the plants during the dry period. So this is a self-sustaining ecosystem, and by burying my old garden underneath it, I've sparked that self-perpetuating flow of life. And now it's time for a good chop and drop to clean this garden up. This eco garden has been completely self-sufficient. By literally burying my old garden under this one, I have sparked a self-sustaining, nature-style, thriving, up till now, ecosystem, edible ecosystem. And by burying my old garden under this new garden, I've not only added nutrients, fertilizer to the soil, but all that composting plant matter under the earth holds and stores a lot of water during dry periods. Just like a well-established ecosystem would do in the wild, only I've sped up the process of thousands of years of organic matter breaking down and building fertile soil. I've sped that up to a few months by using divine mimicry. When building natural ecosystems and natural gardens, they'll naturally call more life to them. And today I found this little chicken living in my eco garden. And I also found a team of little frogs living in my other garden at work. Divine mimicry, copying nature's way of gardening. This has set the wheels in motion for this to be a really good self-perpetuating system, but the next step in a wild ecosystem would be larger animals coming in, breaking down a lot of this plant matter, creating pathways, clearing, letting light in, grazing, especially grazing on the lower leaves and branches, creating airflow, helping to keep the plants clean and strong while also creating mulch on the ground to feed the plants. And eventually everything falls to the ground and breaks down over time anyway. So by using divine mimicry, we can take advantage of this natural process, the process of nature growing what it can and feeding back into itself and then multiplying in more abundance and more biodiversity. This is just what nature does when it's left to its own devices. We can take advantage of that magnificent law of nature while chopping and dropping in a way that channels that natural effect, that power, that energy towards the plants or areas in your garden that could use them the most, or that you would like that energy to be directed towards. So this new garden of mine is a great example of how and why, the many reasons why to chop and drop. So this garden is full of old, dying, cold weather winter plants, all entangled with fresh, thriving summer vegetable plants. There's a lot of old, dead leaves at the bottom of the flourishing plants. There's also plants that are just lost in the mix here, lost in all this wild, untamed growth. So I'm chopping and dropping down the dying winter plants, I'm chopping the old leaves, I'm chopping the low branches down from the summer plants, I'm chopping back parts of the plants that are smothering other plants. I'm giving everything I want to grow here the light, air and space it needs to be healthy and happy. I'm chopping everything else right down to the ground. So like I said, not only am I using divine mimicry to clean up my garden, but I'm doing it in a way that is of maximum benefit to me and what I want out of this garden, of course. And chopping down a small home garden like this is actually quite therapeutic to do by hand. It's kind of like bonsaiing your garden, chopping back to increase production, yield, or just to increase beauty. It's a well-known gardening fact that in most cases, pruning, cutting, or chopping strengthens plants and increases yield and flowers, but they forgot the other part of the sacred natural equation. You don't just chop, you also have to drop. And by chopping what you drop into smaller pieces, that also speeds up the benefits of this natural chopping and dropping process of Mother Earth. Processes taken from nature are always multi-purpose, so you're never doing just one thing. The act of chopping and dropping is built into the system that creates and sustains all life on this planet. The universe, Mother Earth, has had billions, gazillions of years to figure out how to grow plants and create environments, and Mother Nature is a living blueprint of gardening hacks. And chopping and dropping is obviously one of my favorite things to do in an otherwise self-sustaining eco-garden, because it not only continues that self-perpetuating cycle of life that I'm looking for. So the multi-benefits of chopping and dropping are, well, mulch obviously protects the soil, helps the soil to hold water, it feeds and protects beneficial microbes, fungi, bacteria, insects and worms, which are all crucial in sustaining this eco garden for me. And it's so hot out here that my phone actually keeps turning itself off from the heat. So if this soil wasn't covered by mulch, it would be baking, it would be so dry. I would literally have to hand water this garden every day just to keep it alive. But because of the thick mulch and because of the buried compost under the soil, it's holding a lot of water and thriving through all the heat. Also, all this organic plant matter I'm chopping back down to the ground. Plants feed from the sun as well from the soil. They can even draw elements in from the atmosphere around them if they can't get what they need from the soil. So they may be drawing in missing elements, missing nutrients, missing minerals. They may be drawing all this into their body in other ways. So by returning the plants, the leaves, the branches back to the soil, we're adding those missing elements to the soil, which in turn will amplify the fertility, abundance, and biodiversity of the garden. Especially if we're growing lots of different kinds of plants. Plants are full of minerals. We want to be composting all of that right back on top of our garden, just like Mother Earth does. Thanks for watching this quick video on chop and drop. Have fun, everyone.